Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 1983 horror thriller Of Unknown Origin. Now, Of Unknown Origin is, in my opinion, quite honestly, a masterpiece. It's a masterwork. It is the quintessential killer rat film and one of the best, if not the best, home invasion film that I've ever seen. I know that's pretty heavy praise, but that's how I honestly feel about this movie. This is a film that has gotten better and better with each and subsequent viewing. This is a movie that I first saw on VHS when I was living with my dad back in Oklahoma City, and I remember vividly when and where I got the VHS. I got the VHS in North Carolina when I was visiting my friend Damian Sage. We went and saw a double feature at a theater in North Carolina in Raleigh, I think, and it was a double feature of Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Black Christmas. And there was a vendor that was there selling VHS tapes at a table that was like set up on, before you go walk into the theater in the hallway. And one of the tapes that was there was the clamshell release of Unknown Origin from Warner Brothers. And I'd never heard of the film before until I saw that. And I was like, I like the cover art. Simple. Picture of a family, Peter Weller and Shannon Tweed and the kid, and there's some claw marks across it. And I was like, Peter Weller? Okay, I'm in. I love RoboCop. I've never heard of this. How can I have never heard of this movie before? So I got that, and then when I moved to Oklahoma City, I took the tape with me, and I ended up watching it finally for the first time, and I really enjoyed it. And I was able to really enjoy the film despite the really awful quality of the tape that I was watching it on. The tape was in terrible shape. It had tracking issues all throughout the film. It was fuzzy. The picture quality wasn't that great. It was on a small, dinky TV with a VCR built in. And, it was in full screen, and it didn't matter because I was still very captivated by the film. I thought it was still a really good movie. The years went by. I picked up this DVD. It was brand new, I think, at like some kind of store. I forgot where I got it at, but it was brand new, unopened, and I watched it on DVD for the first time a few years ago, and I loved it even more. I thought it was an even better film than the last time that I saw it because I was able to appreciate things so much better with, the DVD and widescreen versus a full screen VHS that's in pretty bad shape. And then the most recent viewing that I saw the film tonight. Wow. I mean, I got to be honest, after this viewing, this is one of my favorite films. This is one of my all-time favorite home invasion movies, and definitely my favorite killer rat film. And it is one of my favorite Peter Weller movies. It's definitely in the top 5. So, yeah, this is a film that just gets better and better each time I watch it. And I definitely do feel that this movie stands the test of time. So, Of Unknown Origin is a 1983 horror film. I call it a horror film because there are some thriller aspects to it, but not really. It's more of a horror film. It's absolutely a horror movie. Um, but in a lot of ways, it's actually an urban Moby Dick. So I like that about it. It's a modern day, of course, modern in terms of, in relation to 1983. It's an 80s urban Moby Dick. And it's written by Brian Taggart based on the book The Visitor by Chauncey G. Parker III. I've never read the book, so I really don't know what to say about the book versus the movie. So, but I'm kind of curious, I guess. I mean, if the book is half as good as the movie, I mean, that'd probably be a pretty good read. Brian Taggart did a top-notch job adapting the book and writing the film. Now, I don't really know necessarily, okay, top-notch job adapting the book, oh, it's nothing like the book. I don't know, but what I mean by adapting the book, I mean by taking the book and adapting it into a way that can be shown cinematically. I always look at books And, you know, when a movie's based on a book, and even if I have read the book, I'm pretty lenient on the film because I know that the movie cannot be exactly like the book. There's no way it can be. It's when a movie strays too far away from the source material, that's when I kind of, uh, don't like that. But, if it's doing something different and it doesn't go as in depth on certain things as the book does, I don't have a problem with that because a movie is a completely different medium than a book is. A movie doesn't, a movie has a budget. A movie has to have the right actors. A movie has to deal with the director and producers and all of this. A movie has to maintain an audience's attention for an hour and a half or 2 hours. A book, you can read some chapters and put it down. A movie, you're really not supposed to do that with a film. It's supposed to be watched all in one sitting. Um, so there's a lot of challenges that come with adapting a book into a screenplay. And this script is really great. It's a great script, a very underrated script by Brian Taggart. How he takes such a very simple plot of this mild-mannered everyman named Bart Hughes, who has a great life in New York City, and then his wife and child leave for a vacation, and Bart stays behind to work on a project that should get him a promotion, and then there's a rat that starts ruining things. It starts screwing up his life. It starts destroying things around his house. It starts destroying his house, his sanity, and ultimately his career. And then he becomes obsessed with this rat. He becomes obsessed with expunging this evil or this presence that just keeps on just fucking with him. It keeps just messing with his life. At each and every turn, it seems like this rat is one step ahead of him, and that just drives him nuts. He can't sleep. He has nightmares about this rat and what it will do to his family. He's not able to focus on his work because the rat just keeps being his focus. And it's a tale of man versus rat. That's what it is. But the screenplay is so well crafted, so well put together, that it feels like it's a little bit more than that. Like possibly this battle between Bart and this rat might also be a metaphor for Bart battling his life. Bart battling some parts of his life that he doesn't want, or he wants to defeat, or he wants to destroy. Or, just the battle of life in general. As the rat could represent, just the everyday struggles of dealing with your job and dealing with the stress that comes along with trying to make a deadline for a promotion at your company. So yeah, I mean, the rat can represent a lot of different things. It could not, it could be a rat, but it could also represent other things in your life. And I think that is a very underrated aspect of this script. It's a little bit deeper than you might think if you peel away some layers and see what's underneath. But that's just how I interpret the screenplay. Now, it stars Peter Weller as Bart Hughes. This is a just powerhouse, powerful, top of the line, great performance by Peter Weller. And this was his first film as a lead actor. This is his first lead role, and he knocks it out of the park. He hits a home run. And this was not an easy role to do. This just showcases how great of an actor Peter Weller is. Because if you had any other actor in this role, the film would not be anywhere near good as it is. And that's because this film, in a lot of ways, hinges upon Peter Weller's performance. He's carrying the film. This is, you have the rat, you have other elements, there's a few other cast members in the film, but Peter Weller dominates most of the screen time. This is his film. And if you didn't have an actor of his caliber, then I don't think you would have been able to pull this off. And just the fact that at a young age, an actor who had never been in a lead role before, he had some bit roles, he'd been on stage, he'd done some stuff in plays. This Canadian actor comes in, takes the lead role, and runs with it in a way that is just unheard of for a first-time lead actor. And this is just a sign of things to come for Peter Weller in his career. He would go on to have a myriad, just a multitude of other just phenomenal performances after this. Jennifer Dale is also in as Laurie Wells, who is like a co-worker of Bart's. Aimee Castle plays Birthday. I think it's the kid. I think it's the son, or I think that's what it is. I guess his name is Birthday. He doesn't have a name. I think he does though, but I'm on Wikipedia. They're calling him Birthday. I don't think his name is Birthday, so I think that's a mistake. Kenneth Welsh plays James Hall. You have Louis or Louis Del Grande as Cleet. Shannon Tweed in her feature film debut as Meg Hughes, who is the wife of Bart. Keith Knight plays Hardware, and you have Maury Chaykin in a little role as Dan Errol, who's another co-worker of Bart's. James Hall, I believe, is his boss. All these other actors, they do their jobs well. They're fine. Shannon Tweed, you can tell she's a bit green as an actress, but she doesn't have to do that much. She's just barely in the movie. She's in it for a few scenes, and she's kind of eye candy, really. And she is some really nice eye candy, I have to be honest. She does a good job of what she's asked to do. So do the other actors and actresses. But it's Peter Weller's show. He is the maestro of this masterpiece. And in a lot of ways, he's the conductor. He conducts this. He's the conductor behind this entire movie. I mean, you could say George Cosmatos, of course, is also conducting the film too, as well as other people who helped put it together. But Peter Weller is one of the main things that makes it all work. Take Peter Weller out, and no, this movie's nowhere near as good. It's definitely not a classic. George P. Cosmatos as well, his direction is dynamic. It is really impressive. And it's so impressive that I think it's one of the most impressive and excellent directorial efforts that I've seen. I'm serious. This is one of the most impressive directorial jobs I've seen from a director. This was not easy. George had a lot he had to handle here on a $4 million budget. So he had to take a concept that could have easily been generic, completely generic and forgettable, and just a bland, boring, okay, guy versus rat, all right, who cares? But the direction is so well done, and it's so dynamic, and it's so expressive that it just brings everything to a whole nother level. And I think it's an extremely underrated directorial job by George P. Cosmatos. It's definitely his finest effort, if you ask me. He's done some other things, like Leviathan. Did a good job with that as well. But the visuals in this are just stunning at times. The way that he shoots the rat and all these different angles. He combines different shots of real rats and these fake rats. The way that he shoots these rats in these really tilted, off-kilter, funhouse mirror type angles that just add to the film's atmosphere and its mood, and just make these scenes with the rat just really unsettling and just unnerving to watch, and also make it, you can't take your eyes off of it because it's such a splendid visual. The visuals are just really well done and well put together. The POV shots of the rat as it's going throughout the house are really well put together. That had to be difficult to do, especially in 1983, because there's no such thing as a GoPro or those tiny mini cameras people use nowadays. I don't know how he did it. He must have had he must have built like a set that's like twice as big and they had a rat run through it or something. I don't know. Like how he does all these things, and he has sort of practical effects with these little like rat puppets, and then other shots with real rats, and zooms in, and there's just very unsettling shots of like the rat's teeth or the rat's feet, or it's just a very it's a visually arresting film. And I'm not the only one. I mean, Kevin Thomas from the Los Angeles Times, he says it. He even says it. He says it's a visual tour de force. He's right. He nailed it. It's right on the money. Visual tour de force. Fast, taut, and darkly comic. He's right there too. It's a very fast-paced film. It's like 88 minutes. It goes by really quick, about as quick as this rat scurries around the house. And It is. It's tightly paced. It's tightly wound. It's a really great slow burn type of horror movie. I love how this film progresses from one moment to the next. It's always interesting. It's always captivating, and it's this very simple thing. It's a simple plot. It's just this businessman. He's trying to get this promotion. His wife and his son are on vacation. He's home alone in his brown house apartment that he built, and he renovated with his bare hands. And here comes this rat that just it gets dropped into his life and just wreaks havoc. And the progressions that I'm talking about that I really like are stuff like you wouldn't really think about necessarily, but these are things that really make the film stand out in a good way. So, like, just the progression of the traps that he's trying to use and the ways that he's trying to kill the rat. He first starts out with these really just chintzy, regular mouse traps, and the rat just goes through those like they're nothing. And then he goes in and moves up. Then there's another progression. He goes in and tries to do these like metal bear trap looking rat traps. The rat gets through that, no problem. It doesn't do anything. Then he tries to do some poison. The rat doesn't fall for it. The rat doesn't eat the poison. And then then finally in the climax, it just goes to this crazy length where Bart Hughes builds a custom-made mace out of a baseball bat, some nails, and some of the spare rat traps. And that's his weapon now. His bare hands and a mace. It just becomes this very primitive battle. It's like he started out kind of, these mouse traps and then the poison and none of it works. And now he's just going to this caveman route where he's just like, all right, fuck it. I'm just gonna have to smack this rat around. I'm gonna have to knock it out of the park like it's a baseball. But yeah, I mean, just that progression alone is just a really interesting, fun thing to see. And also the performances by the actors who play the exterminators and the handyman sort of hardware store owners that Peter Weller's character comes across in the film also do their jobs really well. I love how they're very real and personable, and there's a certain grit and reality to this film that is added to it by the performances. It's also by the mood and the atmosphere. It's a gritty, grimy looking movie. It makes you feel like you need to go take a shower afterwards. And that's for good reason, because it's dealing with this really grimy, antagonist in a rat. Um, I also love the progression of, Bart, of what happens to him. Early in the film, he's this young, bright businessman. He's moving up in the world, and he was taking on this project, and, unlimited amount of time. He has to get this project in on a really short deadline in 2 weeks. He's cocky, he's confident, he's happy. Rat comes in, and then things just start to slowly get out of control. And it's really well put together by the director and the writer, and Weller just does such an amazing job bringing this to the forefront and bringing it to life, with a lot of these just little subtleties, changes in his character. And I love how they add things like dark circles under his eyes, and he's unshaven, and his clothes are dirty, and his tie is askew, and it gradually builds. It's a slow burn. It's like any other slow burn film where the film it has a foundation. There's some accelerant or whatever that's dropped on the ground. Let's say, for instance, it's like powder. It's like a trail of powder that's leading to a powder keg, and the match is lit. And throughout the entire film, it's building up and building up, and the flame is getting closer and closer to the powder keg. And then when it hits the end, it hits the powder keg, and everything explodes. And this just huge explosion. And the film does that. It just explodes in this just house demolishing craziness, where Peter Weller is just, he arms himself for battle, arms himself for war, destroys his house, and goes after the rat. And in a last-ditch effort to not only save what's left of his house, his family, but also his sanity. So it's a battle of not only wills, but it's a battle for all these other different things, in his life. And it just builds up, and then boom, it's a really great climax. Now it's that you don't. It just shows you don't need explosions, and and fire and flames, or gunplay or any of that stuff in order to make a film exciting and suspenseful and tense. Um, there are moments in this film where easily he could have killed the rat if he had a gun, but that would have defeated the entire purpose of the film. That's not the point. The film is trying to show you a different, more unique perspective of how somebody goes about killing a rat in their home, about expelling this invader from their house. Of course, like I said, I love the way that they shoot the rat scenes, and I love how the rat itself is a very formidable adversary. It's a formidable villain. It's smart. It's sly. There's like a scene where Peter Weller is like he leaves a check behind for the exterminator while he's at work. The rat is so clever, it chews up the check and hides it somewhere. So the exterminator thinks that there was no money, so the exterminator doesn't do anything and he leaves. The rat, it just seems like it just increasingly keeps upping the ante, and these scenes are some of the most tense and suspenseful and bone-curdling scenes I can think of in a horror film. The scenes where Peter Weller's up in the middle of the night, get ready to leave a piss, and there's a fucking rat in his toilet that's like pops out and screaming at him. I mean, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? I mean, it's already crazy enough sometimes, when you have to wake up in the middle of the night, you gotta take a piss, and then you're already disorientated, and then boom, rats! You're just like, oh my god, it's terrifying. You'll never want to take a piss in the middle of the night again. And then you think, okay, how is it gonna top that? Then the rat ends up in his bed. There's a shot of the rat underneath his bed, and then it ends up in his bed. And, there's just great, scenes by Peter Weller just cracking. Get out of my bed! Fuck you! You fucking... and then, of course, it's just, you think, like, okay, he's in his bed, it's in his toilet, like, he's sleeping in a hammock above his bed because he doesn't feel safe there. The rat then pokes a hole for the ceiling. It's like, oh, you think that's good enough? Nope, jumps on him there. So he's sleeping in a chair, sleeps in the tub, and gets plastered on J&B, and then the rat jumps on him while he's in the tub. That wakes him up. What a wake-up call. Fucking evil fucking rat jumping on your fucking head. Tears up his work that he's working on. It just wrecks his place. It wrecks his home. It wrecks his sanity. It wrecks his life. And in order to save what's left of everything, he has to gear up and fuck this rat up. And it's a very crowd-pleasing moment in the end where he's got his mace, he goes down into the waterlogged boiler room, and he finally kills that fucker. He gets that furry fucker with his mace, and the nail punctures right through its furry flesh. It bleeds everywhere. It's dead. It's over. It's done with. And it's such a crowd-pleasing moment. You're like, yes, get that furry fucker. Watch and weep, you furry fucker. You sympathize with Bart so much in this film. That's another thing. He's such a relatable character to me. I may not be a businessman, but you totally relate to his plight when he's dealing with this rat. And he's trying all these different things. He's trying to do the non-violent way. He's trying not to hire an exterminator to tear his house apart because he worked so hard to restore it. And then, just push comes to shove, and he's like, fuck it. I mean, I guess if somebody's got to do it, I guess it's got to be me. I got to do it. I'm going to have to kill this fucker myself. And he does, at the expense of his house, but, hey, you got to do what you got to do. I also like the whole moment where he goes into Climax and he kills the rat. He kills the rat inside of a replica, a mock-up of his house. And the house itself is pretty cool looking too. It's this eerie looking old brownstone apartment, and uh, and then he, the mock-up, and that's very unique. It's such a unique film. Um, and then there's other scenes too, like there's a great scene in the film where the scenes where Bart is learning about the rats, and he's learning about them. He goes to a library and he's reading about the rats, and he's seeing the slideshow about what the rat, the plague and the effects of the plague and all this other stuff that rats do, and watching this footage of these rats who are in captivity, in a cage, like eating each other. And eventually, it's too much for him. He shuts it off. And the music in that scene is just perfect. It really creates the mood that the scene needed. It's just a very distressing, just it gets on your nerves. It's just chilling. It's a very chilling moment, and then it builds up to a really phenomenal line delivery and a great performance by Peter Weller when he's going to this dinner table, sort of dinner conversation, and he starts talking about all these rat facts and things like that, and and it's just making all these other people who are at the table, their stomachs are churning and they're losing their appetite, and it's such an awkward and just unsettling sequence. And just learning how all these rats do all these crazy things that you would never think of. And yeah, I mean, also the title, Of Unknown Origin. These rats are of unknown origin. We don't know where they came from. We don't know. So for all that I know, these rats could have came from the pits of hell. It would just come right out of hell. Wouldn't surprise me in the least. It would explain a lot of things. Um, so yeah, I mean, the movie is just a great film. It is a splendid, wonderful, just fantastic film. It's a marvelous motion picture, and I highly recommend it. I really do. I give this my highest recommendation. If you haven't seen the film, I highly recommend it. Give it a look. Everything that I've described to you, it doesn't mean it's not the same. You have to see it in action. You have to see it for yourself, because me explaining it to you and describing things to you is one thing, but actually seeing it for yourself and seeing these just splendid visuals, seeing this powerhouse performance by Peter Weller, just seeing everything come together, it is something that you can't explain it. It's something that you just have to see for yourself. You really do. And like I said earlier, it is an urban Moby Dick. And if you like Moby Dick, you like that type of story, then I do definitely recommend you check out Of Unknown Origin. And I think that was intentional, because there's a scene where he's banging on the wall and trying to get the rat to go away. And it's a Moby Dick. He uses a Moby Dick. The book is Moby Dick that he's using to smack against the ceiling. Apparently, this is Stephen King's favorite film. It's got some nice taste there, Stephen. But even though it was his favorite film, one of his favorites, the film didn't do very well. It made $1 million in a $4 million budget. It came out in November of 1983. Did nothing in the box office, and that's too bad. I think this deserved to make at least its budget back, or even more than that. I think it's that good of a film. But, there were some people who did not like it. Vincent Canby was one of them. He had nothing but disdain for the film, apparently. He praised Peter Weller, but he said that the film is terrible. And that's kind of all. I didn't read the rest of his review because I thought it was terrible. I don't see a single terrible thing about this movie. Just everything is just in its place, exactly where it needs to be. There's nothing that stands out in a negative way to me. I can't think of a single thing that I found wrong with this movie. And absolutely, if you are a fan of Peter Weller and you haven't seen this film, this is a must-see, because this definitely does showcase Peter Weller's talents really well. And he also did a commentary track with George P. Cosmatos on this DVD. So that was interesting. You know, because Peter Weller seems like he doesn't do a lot of commentary tracks, so it seems like, you know, he is a fan of this film. I think he should be, and this needs to be on Blu-ray. Now, this looks fine on DVD, up converted. It looks great and sounds great, but I'd love to see a Blu-ray, and I'd love to see new features and stuff like that, because I think it deserves it. I think this film deserves that. Get this on Blu-ray already. And I don't know what else to say, except fuck the luggage. But anyway, I had a party. Yeah, if I was going to rate it out of 5 stars, I'm going to give 5 out of 5 stars. I really do not find anything wrong with this film. I think, like I said, every puzzle piece falls into place just the right way. And, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. And as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.